No, you didn't.
Since I heard the speech before,
Twice probably.
yeah, that's right, but that's okay. The thing that I like, we are supposed to talk about one thing positive and one thing
That was for
negative.
Glenn. That was for Glenn.
That was for me only.
Oh, only for you?
Oh yeah, I will do it in 2 minutes.
We're giving him extra time. This is towards international speech.
Yeah.
Earlier, I had made the comment that there's 2 ships passing in the thing didn't make any connection to me with the rest of it. Did a great job this time connecting it together so that now I can see, oh, that's what we're talking about. So that was very good. You made that connection and made it clear so that there wasn't something dangling out there.
Thank you.
The thing that I think I would have liked to see more is that character building of the people there. Just a little bit more. And probably a little bit less of the weather. I understand that it's critical to the fact that you went into Roy Rogers instead of just driving off, but probably if you didn't really worry that much about what the weather was like, but instead start talking about the story once you got into Roy Rogers, that would have given you a little bit more time to develop the characters, and that's the suggestion that I would make.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay,
Gary?
he gets to choose.
You
He
need
gets to choose.
Okay, to add on to Serena's comment, I'm going to do an exercise with you real quick. I jumped into my father's arm with his flannel shirt having the odor of cherry tobacco. What color is the flannel shirt? Good, and that's what most people would say. If you're Budhead Glenn Stafford, you didn't tell me. But the fact that you said flannel shirt, cherry tobacco, you saw a red flannel shirt. So the thing is, to add to her, you were a little bit overboard on the details. If you just said it was a gloomy, rainy day, and just left it at that, let your audience create the picture. You don't need to give them the specific details for them to see it the way you want to see it. Let your audience see the way they want to see it based upon those concise, descriptive words that provides that image.
You're out of time.
Me? Good morning.
And he tells me I stink.
Your structure, I think I agree with what's been said that you, with Serena saying that you had too much build-up. You could have said it more succinctly and gotten into the meat of the story, which was the relationship and why you did what you did and what happened after. I kind of wrote down the whole speech and then outlined here to try and get that clear in my head. The point seems to be either a choice to connect. I think that's what I get the biggest thing. 2 ships passing the night, or share and have a relationship. So basically it's the choice to connect. Are you or aren't you? A couple of things that just I noticed in your presentation, that your right arm was locked and you kept it here like you're holding it to your heart, which is really interesting. That was where we're coming from with your heart, but don't lock it away. And you were interrupting yourself in several times, and I didn't know whether that was a ploy or a problem. So just be sure that if you're doing that you're doing it for a reason. But you started a sentence and then you said, well, let me tell you about that. So just watch out for that. You had a really cute gesture, one of the most natural and wonderful gestures, though, right after that, when you were talking about, well, it was over here. It was really cute. So those kind of gestures really make you that endears me to my heart about you. I liked how you worked with a book. Get rid of it once you're done with it, because then you had nothing. You had this book in your hand, and you were just man with one book. And the one last thing is your speaking rate. I think that's what kind of lulls me sometimes to sleep while you speak, because you kind of give it's like a little phrase with a pause in between it. So it goes da 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 da. da-da-da. Like you're jumping over a hurdle and then walking a few and then jumping over a hurdle.
Yeah, you can say
So
it.
I don't know how that, you know. It's red. It looks orange to me. I don't.
It does look orange.
That's all I can say.
This is my second time to hear this speech. Let me talk about what I liked about this time compared to the last time. I think you involved the audience in a way, when you describe the rude worker at the restaurant, that you used me, and that had an impact, and I was like, oh, I could feel that's rude, mean. And a couple of things for the area of improvement. I think smile is one of the key elements in this speech. When you first time talked about Jessica smiling when she hands the coffee to the customer, I didn't see smile on your face.
Oh.
And
I like it.
and the next time you talked about smile, when it was when there was a actual interaction between you and Jessica, and so when you talked to Jessica, actually when Jessica handed the coffee to you,
Right.
she had a smile, and then next time when you say thank you Jessica to her, and then her smile would be much bigger. So I wanted to see that difference in that conversation. And another thing is when you are reading from the book, and each time you look at us, when you read and look at us, and sort of you flipped the cover page each time, so that was a little bit distracting to me. But I think the speech was much better than the last time, so I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I saw a pamphlet.
Well, I'll just say a few things because I didn't write anything down. I'm videoing. Much better use of the book. I agree with Chiharu about closing it in between your phrases. Leave it open. If you're reading, you're reading. Don't confuse us by closing it because we thought you were done and then you weren't, and then you weren't done, and then you weren't, and then you were done. Before you start reading, however, this isn't going to be on the video, but if you hold the book up to show us, remember how I talked about hold the book like you love it, but then if you shake it, then you don't love it. So you were gesturing with the book.
Not good.
So gesture with the other hand, or hold the book in the non-gesturing hand, whichever. That's a tiny, tiny thing. And then just, I suggest you work with a great editor like Drew or someone like that to shorten that first section. So again, you can set the scene with much fewer words.
Very good. Right?
Yep, okay. Me?
Scott, you first?
Scott.
Sorry. Go ahead.
So the way you were using the book, it made it feel like you were a preacher holding the Bible and
It's scary.
so.
This
But-
is it.
Yeah, either you don't like the book or you're chastising the audience or something. So yeah, try not to
Just love
shake the
it.
book.
I'll watch
Just
myself
love
on,
it.
on video.
You'll see it.
The power of grace. Now, your guru, your statement, it was very long and kind of interrupting. So I suggest maybe writing down a paragraph on the story of, what was it, Hannah or Heather, what?
Georgette Marie.
Marie, yeah. Then maybe rewrite it in like 3 sentences and then try and rewrite it in 1 if you can, just to shore it up and
a great idea.
make your guru statement like a single impactful statement.
It was originally like 20 sentences, and I cut it down to 10, and I cut it down to like
Hey, see how far you've come?
8. Yes.
And you
So,
can really tighten it up if you go 1 or 2 sentences in dialogue.
well, yeah, exactly.
It's a process.
Okay. Right?
Okay, since you have heard so much about the prop, I'm going to ask you a question. Is the point you're trying to make would be lessened if you didn't have the book? Because if the answer is no, then you lose the prop. I'm always very wary of using props
Right.
where it is not absolutely essential to the plot. It's like, nudity in a movie. If it's essential to the plot, you do it, otherwise you don't. The point is it essential that you have to show me the book? That I wouldn't know if I wouldn't get the impact of what you're trying to say without the book.
Yeah, you can just reference it.
If that's because everybody knows how to win and influence people. They may not know the story. I don't remember the story until you said it the first time. But I remember the book. So you don't have to, that's my opinion about that anyway. You need to have more expressions other than your smiley face. Especially when the guy in front of you says, "It's about time." I really want to see that almost hatred in his face, in your face.
Right.
And then when you talked to Jessica and said, "We are really appreciative," and I was thinking, you don't speak for me. Maybe, you might want to say, "I am appreciative for what you do for others," or something like that. Would have been better. And then you asked a question that wasn't on my mind, and you answered it yourself. It's like, does it matter? Probably not. You don't have to ask the "does it matter?" Because that question wasn't in my mind. If you were thinking about, if you were answering my questions in my mind, it wasn't in my mind. And the last thing I wanted to say was the two ships in the night metaphor works in the front. I don't think it works in the closing, because that guy was also not two ships in the night, because he had a contact with Jessica too. The difference was your contact with Jessica. So if they were two ships in the night, they're both going to, he's probably not going to remember the encounter, but she will. So the metaphor breaks down there in my mind. So you got to figure out how to breach that. Because if you're two ships passing in the night, you don't know each other, who's living, who's the whatever, but you had an encounter. So don't be like a two ships in the night. But at the same time, if you have an encounter, don't make it be negative and violent.
Okay, let me ask about that then. Because what I tried to do is I tried to say at the beginning, how do two ships pass in the night? Well, they might pass silently, gliding by each other. Or they might steam by each other, horns blaring, or they might even collide.
But all of those are negative. I mean,
There wasn't a
ignoring, crashing,
Right.
blaring, those all sound very negative to me.
Right, and the idea was we could have completely ignored it, and maybe I just didn't explain it.
Well,
What I was trying to say, I don't know if the metaphor doesn't work, but what I was trying to make it be is to be, well, we could have ignored each other. Like I said, we could have her silently and mechanically dispensing the coffee, or we could have been like those two ships with the horns blaring, like Mr. Grumbly and Lime.
Well,
But instead, we chose to share.
there's two things
That was what I was trying to do.
There's two things. You slip by each other or pass by each other, or you connect. You could, if it's appropriate, add blaring at each other and stipulate to two individuals. But basically, two ships in the night, implies two things. They never connected, or they connected.
In some way.
In some way, exactly.
And that's the point I was trying to make. That when you say they connected in some way, they did. Their connection was not positive. Yours was.
And that's the difference.
So
Yeah, I mean, it became a pirate. The other ship was a pirate ship. I was trying to think something like that.
Or was dark and leaning with each other.
Well, and Gary, the underlying question that comes to me in this sub discussion here is if you have to explain your metaphor that
Clearly it's not
deeply,
working, yes,
it
yes.
may not be the
Clearly it's
metaphor
not
for
working.
this speech.
I had another quote if I may say so.
Yeah.
Life is like a journey by train with the traveler at each window pane. I may sit beside you all the journey through, or I may sit elsewhere never knowing you. But should fate mark us to be side by side, let's be pleasant travelers, it's so short a ride. It's not a ship metaphor, but it's
But it is traveling.
It's transportation.
And it's a beautiful. Who wrote that? I've heard it before.
I don't remember. I've used it so many times.
Yeah.
Very minimal.
No.
No.
He did write a song that was about two ships, though.
I mean,
This
you
is
have your
true.
hand up.
1975.
Yeah,
Jerry,
take
go-
Masood, take Masood.
Gary, go look up that Barry Manilow. Uh-oh. Okay.
Let's see. 3 or 4 quick things. I got a little confused with the Georgette and all the names there. I don't know what you can do, but I knew the intention, so it didn't matter that I couldn't think whose name was what, but you seemed to like this was this person's. So that kind of was okay, but I got a little. There's a little bit of where it distracted me a little bit. It's kind of like that joke where they say you're the bus driver, and these people come in, those come out, and at the end they ask you who's the bus driver. The two ships thing. That's a metaphor. To me, it's always been a metaphor that, these ships are going by, and how you interact, that's the question. For you to explain those three possibilities was just like, where's he going with that? It was like a little bit too much time spent on that. Because the metaphor itself was enough. You
binary, yeah.
Maybe
you just say the metaphor and
Shouldn't have
just
to explain the metaphor.
Right,
It's
yeah,
important.
right.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
at the part where you get to where you're thanking Jessica, I thought that the emotions actually really came out there. I actually felt like crying at that point. So whatever you did there, keep doing that. The thing about the rain and the tired and the grumpy stuff, I mean, there was a little bit too much build-up, but the fact that I pictured the rain and everyone's all, exhausted and so forth, that was a good setup. That kind of primed me to know how everyone was acting in there and how everyone was grumpy. So those are four minor things. The main question I have for you, what I felt was, it wasn't your own voice speaking. That you didn't own the voice of the person who was saying something. I mean, it was done well, but it still seemed like when you see somebody acting in front of the camera and they look at the camera and you know that they're thinking they're not in their own character. So somehow, whatever way you can make it your own. I have no idea how you do that, but there are plenty of actors
Coaches
here
right
that
here.
can tell you probably.
Acting coach.
The other thing I would say is, with the same observation, is I didn't take a note of you just talking beforehand, but I thought there was a little bit of nervousness, and of course there will be, but which audience would you be comfortable with telling this story, where you'd be completely relaxed? So that's something I would think about. Or what worked for me was, I would imagine myself giving that speech being completely relaxed. Hit me on the head with it. That's it.
Okay, looks like we're almost out of time.
Oh,
one-
Tanya?
One quick little
Tanya.
piece. I'm sorry, I hadn't heard this speech, so therefore this is my first round with it. But it felt to me like it was a little bit out of order, because you came back and kind of put them as two ships passing in a night by saying she was just remotely giving out coffee. Something like that should have been somewhere at the beginning when you're trying to show that she's got her thing, she's doing this. You could even have told us what you were doing maybe with your family or whatever for a minute, and how you were just kind of observing this man. I think what threw the whole metaphor on the two ships passing was the fact that you gave that man such a voice in the whole thing. You gave him a huge, boisterous voice out of the blue, when you were trying to show that you and Jessica are the two ships. So I think if you somehow took the man voice thing out of the whole thing and just described that she's encountering these people and some of them are just straight up nasty or whatever, just kind of make it more of a descriptive thing of what she's doing against what you're doing, and how your two worlds really had no reason to collide except that she was giving you coffee. And then bring in the idea that you saved her day. Now, the book. I heard a lot of stuff about the book. The book drove me nuts. I'm sorry, because it gave me it forecast exactly what you were going to tell me for the rest of the speech. As soon as I heard you say, Marie said this to Georgette, and it made her day, and she came back a lady, and I said, okay, he's going to tell her something, it's going to make her day, and it's going to be the end of the story. You kind of gave away your boom with the book. I think use of the reference would be nice, so maybe at the end, I don't know, you'd have to work it out, I'm not sure, because I'm not really great at it.
After the story.
Not sure if it would be after, but to give away that much of your story killed it for me. I already knew where it was going before you got there. So therefore it took away your thunder
The only
At the end.
surprise.
Yeah, you took the surprise totally out of it. Other than that, I mean, I think it's a great speech. I think you just need to maybe work it. You want it structured. I'm giving you structure. Just work it in a way that it makes more sense to have all the pieces that you've got a lot going on in the speech. Maybe to look at the pieces you've got and decide which ones are most important. And I'm done.